Welcome back to Weeknight Mysteries Podcast. My name is Yuras, and I'm here with my co-host, Rain.
As always.
How are you? How are you?
I'm all good. How are you today?
I'm good. Happy Easter to all of our listeners. Hopefully you guys are having a good Easter.
Or belated Easter.
Belated Easter celebration. Yeah, because this is going to come out probably a little bit after Easter.
Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. So, today we want to talk about Cherrie Mahan's disappearance case. It's a case that has been brought to us by someone on the YouTube channel's comment section. So thank you everyone for participating in that and bringing us new cases. We actually have a list now of topics that we want to kind of cover.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm just going through the list, in no particular order, just like whichever came, first come, first served basis. So basically, if you suggested a case like a couple of weeks ago, chances are that we're probably looking into it right
Keep
now.
them coming, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because it's interesting to see what people want us to talk about.
Definitely.
So Cherrie Mahan, we watched a news report before we started looking into this case more in depth. What do you recall from the news report? It was an 8-year-old girl from Pennsylvania. She went missing in 1985. So this was a long time ago. I believe recently it was the 39th anniversary. 39th anniversary since Cherrie Mahan has been missing. Yeah, what do you recall?
Very vague. I just remembered, as you said, a little girl who was on her way back home in a school bus. And then I believe it was one day wherein her mother was not able to pick her up for some reason. And then she had to walk from the bus stop towards her home. And then she just suddenly vanished.
Yeah, it's a very similar story to what you just told. I think the only difference is that I believe it wasn't that the mother wasn't able to pick her up, chose not to, because it was a very nice day out and their thinking was that Cherrie liked walking anyways. And the thing is, the bus stop and their home is like very close by. I've seen some estimates that it's only 100 yards away, which is around 90 meters.
Oh, so it's practically nothing.
It's practically
just
nothing.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. Like very close. So I would say not picking up your kid when it's almost right there in this kind of rural road in Pennsylvania where seemingly nothing out of the ordinary ever happens doesn't really sound that crazy to me. It wasn't like it was a busy street in a big city and then Cherrie, an 8-year-old girl, had to walk like, multiple blocks of streets. It wasn't like that.
It sounds completely understandable. Honestly, it sounded like it was a perfectly safe environment.
Exactly. As far as I'm aware, nothing like this ever happened in the vicinity. So, Cherrie Mahan, at the time of her disappearance, she was 8. She was living in Winfield Township in Butler County in Pennsylvania. So, it's a fairly rural location. The closest big city is Pittsburgh, and even Pittsburgh is quite a drive away. It's not completely nearby. She was a 3rd grade student at that time. She was the daughter of Janice McKinney, who had Cherrie at a very young age of 16. Janice told the media that she was raped, and that is the reason why Cherrie came to existence. Now, her biological father, Cherrie's biological father, has never been publicly identified because I don't think that Janice McKinney ever pursued any sort of legal action against that person. And that's why we don't know who the biological father is, because at this point Cherrie is still missing and there is no way to kind of get any DNA from Cherrie to connect to the biological father. And it makes sense that the biological father doesn't come forward, because then he would also be admitting rape.
Yeah, the crime.
Yeah, the crime. So makes sense that we don't know exactly who the biological father is, and he has never been publicly named, but according to Janice, he is one of the people of interest
Yeah.
in the case, or at least the people that he knew.
She knew?
He knew. The biological father's acquaintances could
Oh,
have been
gotcha.
responsible, according to a news report where Janice spoke and provided some more details. So Janice cared for Cherrie very much. Janice told the media that Cherrie was her whole life. And essentially they grew up together because Cherrie was just a teenager.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I didn't find this information, but I've seen some mentions of the fact that Cherrie and Janice, they both grew up in Cherrie's grandmother's home, which would make sense. It would be, I think, Janice's mother's home.
Yeah.
And I don't think when you're a 16-year-old mother, you can afford to live on your own. That's
No.
not happening, right? So sometime later on in life, Janice McKinney married Leroy McKinney, a Vietnam veteran who took in Cherrie as his stepdaughter. And from all accounts, Leroy McKinney was a great father figure for Cherrie and a great husband for Janice. They raised Cherrie, and Cherrie was growing up to be a very happy kid.
She looked like a very happy kid. She looked like she was cared for, definitely. Well, based on the pictures that we've seen.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree on that one. So in late 1984, Janice, Leroy, and Cherrie, they all moved to Corn Planter Road in Butler County. So we have some images on the map where this is, and as I'm looking at the map where this location is at, it really is like seemingly in the middle of nowhere. The closest town would be the town of Cabot, which is a very small rural town in the state of Pennsylvania. As I've said, the closest big city would be Pittsburgh, or yeah, that's pretty much the only big city that I can see from the map here. Sometime during their stay or shortly before they moved to this Corn Planter Road in Butler County, I had information that I found that allegedly Cherrie had broken her hand, but it had already healed by the time she went missing. So I guess this is an important detail, because if any remains are ever found, that hand injury would be identified on the bone. So we would be able to kind of tell if it was Cherrie or not. She also had told, I believe, a teacher at school or someone else, I can't really recall, that she was, at the time of her disappearance, she was scared of the neighbor's dog.
Yeah, but that's normal.
That's normal.
For a kid, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing out a detail here.
Nothing seems to be out of the ordinary. I thought you would say she's scared of the neighbor, then that would be suspicious.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into some details here pretty soon. I'm gonna tell you something that wasn't on the news report, and it just literally came out like a month ago, seemingly to the public. So we're gonna get to that. Now I want to quickly talk a little bit about the time when she went missing. So she went missing on February 22nd, which was a Friday, 1985. So the first thing that jumps to my attention is that this is fairly close to the time when they first moved into this location. Because let's remember that they moved into Corn Planter Road in the late 1984. And she went missing in February 1985. So this was just a month into their move.
Yeah.
That could be a potential clue. I was thinking that that's pretty relevant that they hadn't been living there for even half a year, as Cherrie was seemingly abducted. So Cherrie, on the day when she was potentially abducted, she started off the day fairly normal, as I recall. She went to school. Her mother, Janice, actually led her to the bus stop in the morning as she was going to school. She was, wearing a gray coat, a blue denim skirt, blue leg warmers, and a pair of beige boots. This was February in Pennsylvania. I think it was somewhat cold, I can't really tell, but there was snow on the ground. Janice, as I've said, walked Cherrie to the bus in the morning. Cherrie was excited that day because she knew she was gonna go to a play date after school. I believe Janice was gonna take Cherrie to a play date with someone that Cherrie knew, like her best friend or something like that. So she was excited for that day. I think it was also like a schoolmate of Cherrie's, but I could be wrong here. So, as she was going back home, Cherrie was in a bus that was taking her from her school, which was kind of school bus. Sorry, it was the school was fairly nearby. So the school was taking her home. She was with 3 other classmates on the school bus. The school bus arrived at the stop close to her home at 4 p.m. Remember, we talked about that the bus stop is like 100 yards away from her home. And so all of the kids got off the school bus. The 3 kids that were also with her on the school bus, they all got into one of the kids' mother's car. So there was a mother in her car waiting for the children. And I'm not really sure exactly why that was. Maybe because the mother would kind of, drive all the kids to their homes, like individually, because they're still very young kids. But I don't think Cherrie got in because Cherrie was just 100 yards away. She could just walk home. There's no reason to drive her because she literally lives by the bus stop. There's no reason for her to kind of get driven anywhere, right? So Cherrie got off the bus and she was heading back home. And we know this because the people who were on the bus and the mother that came and picked up the 3 kids, she reported seeing Cherrie walking towards home. Now, she was walking past a bluish-green van, like a van, which had been parked near the bus stop. So that's all the information that we have. We don't know if anyone came out of that van and picked Cherrie up or anything like that. We just know that she walked past the blue van. And, the mother with the 3 kids in her car, she drove away. And that's pretty much it. No one really saw what happened next. So there was snow that day, as I've mentioned earlier, right, on the ground. There were no footprints on the driveway leading to Cherrie's home. So therefore, law enforcement assumed that she got picked up pretty soon.
She never made it.
Yeah, pretty soon after she left the bus. And back in 2011, police trooper Robert McGraw stated that he believed that Cherrie was lured by someone that she knows, by someone who had the ability to lure her to their vehicle without Cherrie giving it any thoughts. On top of that, another blue car was also seen in the area at the time of Cherrie's disappearance. There's not a lot of information on this second blue vehicle. It's been mentioned sometimes. Some sources won't mention this blue vehicle, but we have another weird, unaccounted vehicle that has also been seen in the area. But when you look at the map, and I kind of was able to find out where exactly the road is, and I took some screenshots here in our notes, and I'm going to be showing this on the YouTube channel. It kind of baffles you a little bit. Why exactly were there unaccounted vehicles? Because when you look at the Google Maps, this place where the bus stop was located, it's really in the middle of nowhere. It's a very rural road, and seems like if you don't have any business being there, you would never be there in the first place. Because you have to remember that this is back in '85. There were no Google Maps back then. So getting lost in these rural Pennsylvania roads were a lot easier. So there's very little, in my opinion, reason for anyone to kind of be taking a joyride in these very rural roads. It just doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So if you would take a look at the first map, kind of image that I took here, and I made some, notes on it. So you can see where the bus stop is at, right? From this. And you see where the home is at also?
The home is pretty far away. Not far away per se. It's kind of isolated.
It's very isolated. You see that kind of long driveway also that I pinpointed on the map? So that's the driveway that Cherrie would have to walk up. It's kind of like a steep uphill walk, but that's just a driveway leading to that one house where Cherrie was living. So some of these images, right? Like if we would take a look at the second image that I have here, I kind of pinpointed where the bus stop could have been. And you see where there's this kind of sign of a bus stop. So the first driveway is actually that you could see from here, the classmates' house driveway is actually the first driveway that I think Cherrie would have to pass. And then she would kind of have to walk along the corner a little bit to get to the driveway that would lead to her home. So there's two driveways here. The first driveway leads to a classmate's house, I believe, and then there's the second driveway a little bit farther down the road. And if you would walk from, the bus stop a little bit farther down the road, like maybe, 20 yards or something like that, you would eventually get to this driveway. And this is the driveway that would lead to Cherrie's home. And we have some images of it. You could see it's kind of a incline.
Steep incline.
Yeah, and then eventually you would get to this house. It's like a trailer type of a house. And that's where Cherrie was living with her family at that point. So that's where you would kind of have to go. Now, the thing is that there was snow that day, snow on the ground. And I don't think that Cherrie's footprints were on the driveway. So that would mean that she never got onto this driveway and that she probably got picked up pretty early on by the van.
I kind of pictured a different scenario. Not scenario per se, like geography. I pictured a more developed land, like where there are a little bit more houses and a little bit of more action, cars, people, but this seems like to be literally in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a forest. So it is pretty weird to have random cars, unidentified cars, parked around it.
Yeah. No, please share more because I'm just taking a break. I'm just sipping some
water break again.
Yeah, water break. No, so you thought that this was going to be more of a
suburb,
more developed piece of land, right?
Not particularly a town or city, but more of like kind of like a suburb kind of vibe.
Yeah, exactly. And now when you have this information, right, doesn't it feel strange that there's a minivan?
Oh yeah, it's practically the middle of a forest.
And then another unaccounted blue car, which was strange to me because what does it even mean to be unaccounted blue car in such a location?
And there's not much houses there. So I don't know, like now I'm assuming that it's supposed to be like a tight community where everyone knows everyone. So random unaccounted cars, what were they doing there? Were they visiting someone? And if so, that particular person must have known them, but it seems like it was just randomly there.
It does seem, when you start thinking about it, it does seem that whoever was here probably wasn't here for the first time.
True.
You know?
Do you think they were just stalking kids?
That's a possibility in my eyes. So the van would be later described by the witnesses, so I feel like by the mother and the children who got off the bus stop, as a 1970s era Dodge, possibly a 1976 model. with a distinctive mural depicting a skier traversing a snow-capped mountain pointed on the side of the van. And we have some images of the sketches of the van. So it has a very distinctive mural of a man on like snow skis skiing down a snow-capped mountain.
Does it look like a company van to you?
No, it doesn't look like any company van to me.
Kind of looks like a ski tour company van, like snow.
I do wonder, like, if this was a thing back in the day to have like these company vans.
True.
Because from the research that I've done, this thing to put a mural on your van was apparently popular back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, I guess. And so the police actually looked into thousands of vans matching this description. Thousands of vans. Yeah, and there's even a chance that maybe they already even looked at this man. But there just has been so many vans that maybe they even looked past this one.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I would like to say we don't even know for a fact that this van is in any way involved, even though it is highly assumed that it is involved, and it would make sense that
someone should have stepped in. If, for example, I'm the owner of that van and I'm completely innocent, I've seen the news, seen the paper, I would have stepped in.
Unless you're afraid.
Afraid of what?
To be accused falsely.
True, but they could check my van.
Yeah, they could check your van, but then you're going to be permanently a person of interest. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but I'm just trying to think of a motivation why someone wouldn't do it, you know? So Cherrie's mom, Janice, said that this was actually the only day, I think, throughout their whole stay in Corn Planter Road, which wasn't that long, just basically a few months at this point, when she didn't go meet Cherrie at the bus stop.
That's extremely painful.
Yeah, on that one day when you don't go. A source I found said that this was a day off for Janice, so she wasn't working, I think, on this particular day. So both of these details are interesting to us because, for me personally, I'm thinking if Cherrie was actually targeted by someone, maybe that somehow would, that person or people who would be targeting Cherrie specifically, maybe they would know this information, that this was a day off for Janice. But I don't know how they could, know exactly that Cherrie wouldn't go pick up, Janice wouldn't go pick up Cherrie on this particular day. So I don't really know, but maybe it plays a role.
Not necessarily, unless they're stalking them every day, waiting for the right moment.
And I don't think that was the case because this van was only reported there once. And I feel like as a person who, as a potential culprit who would be abducting kids, this person wouldn't stalk the same area more than once, because then people would start noticing this van every day next to a school bus.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be happening unless this person was from the neighborhood and they knew the school bus pattern already. And this was the day when they were going to do something, terrible. What do you think about that?
That's true.
Right. So when Cherrie did not return home, her parents raised the alarm. An extensive search was conducted, but Cherrie was never located. Investigators had quickly discounted any possibility that Cherrie had been kidnapped for a ransom, concluding that the child most likely knew her abductors or abductor, although all family members were quickly eliminated as suspects. In 2022, law enforcement, this is a news article I've read, welcomed 2 investigators from Team Adam of the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. They are reviewing some of the files, which is in total 5,000 typewritten reports, plus notes, attachments, photos, and more.
Jeez.
At this point, law enforcement doesn't want to speculate whether Cherrie Mahan's disappearance was caused by someone who knew her. It's a unique case in the fact that it happened in the area that is so rural. The case is open, and no one is clear beyond a reasonable doubt until this thing is solved, the investigator told the media. There are limitations in following up on the decades-old abduction. There were no license plate readers or home surveillance cameras at that time. Without photos, for example, police followed up on hundreds of vans with illustrations of mountain scenes, skiers, and even some cowboys. So, 5,000 typewritten reports, pictures, images, just kind of want to let that sink in. Law enforcement definitely has a lot more information than we do. So I don't want to speculate in any kind of direction here. We're just, I guess, raising awareness for this case at this point. So remember I told you that there were some interesting clues that came out lately. So there was a report from Butler Eagle. It's a newspaper kind of website. And on the 39th anniversary of Cherrie Mahan's disappearance, Butler Eagle made a news article, and there was a piece of information that has not been publicly out ever before that was so strange. So Janice told the reporter for Butler Eagle that soon after the family relocated to Corn Planter Road, Cherrie told them that someone was looking in at her from outside the window of their home. Janice also added, "When we moved, I should have known something was wrong. Was there somebody? I don't know," she said. Someone looking at Cherrie from outside the home through the window. And Cherrie told this to her parents. And this information never really came out before. This is the first time we're hearing this info. In 2024, I'm pretty sure law enforcement knew about this, but I'm just saying for the public, we didn't know this. But that is a very bizarre detail. What do you think about that one?
That's just straight up creepy. I had goosebumps.
And you know where this house is at?
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, think about the long driveway you have to walk. Think about this very massive, long, inclined driveway you have to walk to get to the house. From the images that we've seen on the map, there's almost no way a passing by person could do this.
No way.
You have to specifically walk up the driveway to even do this.
And where would you hide your car? Nobody reported seeing like a unidentified car for multiple times.
Well, I guess you would have to park somewhere close to the driveway and then just make the walk.
And hide?
But who would do this? Who would be doing this? The question is.
A creep or maybe Cherrie's father, biological.
Yeah, biological father.
But why so creepy?
Why so creepy? Could be a neighbor. Because I'm just throwing out like the most logical things that jump to my mind. Who else would be walking up?
I mean, from the map, there doesn't seem to be much neighbors around.
Also, we could take into account that Cherrie was 8, and the question is, did she really see someone?
Yeah, I think so.
You think she saw someone?
Yeah, an 8-year-old wouldn't lie about that.
Yeah, exactly.
They tell random things like, I don't know, giant octopus or something, but not like stalkers.
Yeah, because I feel like when she reported this to her parents, she was most likely like uneasy at the very least about this.
Yeah, or curious. Like, Mom, there's a random person looking at me from the outside.
Yeah. I assume this maybe happened only once, because if it was a common thing, that the parents probably would have investigated it.
True.
But they may have written it off.
But it happened, though.
It happened. She definitely told them that. We didn't know this key details. This kind of points a different picture. Because, for me, this case was always about, when I was thinking about it, whether or not Cherrie was actually targeted or was she just a random victim? Like, did someone actually knew who they were going to abduct, or were they going to abduct anyone, and it was just, whoever was the most convenient person. And now when we have this detail that someone was looking in at Cherrie potentially through the window from the outside, this kind of leads me to think more in the sense that maybe she was targeted. On top of that, this is a very rural road and a very random area for just a random person to kind of go and, abduct someone from this particular spot. It just seems very strange, especially because, I don't know. You could say that maybe just because it was a rural road, maybe there's less witnesses, but also at the same time, it's just in the middle of nowhere. It's just hard to imagine that you would pick that particular spot unless you're someone who knows the area well, because there's no Google Maps once again, so you kind of need to know the area to be able to traverse back onto like a highway or something like that. So it must be someone who knew the area, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I'm also wondering if Cherrie was the only one who got stalked on. Were there multiple children, and for some reason Cherrie was the particularly vulnerable one, or was she specifically the target?
Yeah, that's another good question. I have no idea how to answer that.
Yeah,
I think there's just not we don't have the information to kind of make any conclusions here. So on CBS Pittsburgh report, Janice said that no one was a stranger to Cherrie. If you said her name, she would think that you know her.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
That's bad. From the information on Charlie Project, a website, a website where you could find information on missing people's cases, a blue car was also seen in the area at the time of Cherrie's disappearance. Now, this blue car that I've mentioned earlier, I don't really know why it was strange. Was it somewhere close by? We just don't know this detail. Now, the first thing that kind of led investigators into a lead or something of that nature was that a month after Cherrie's disappearance, a 12-year-old girl in Spring Hill Township, which is about 90 miles away, was approached by a man in a blue van who asked her if she wanted to get a ride to school. Her school bus drove around the corner, and then this man in the blue van just drove away. She described the man as a 30-year-old man, a heavy-set man with black hair, a beard, and a mustache. The blue van had a dragon mural, not a skier mural. So this happened a month ago. A man approached a 12-year-old girl in a van and asked if she wanted a ride to school. That's creepy.
That's really
That's
creepy.
terrible. That's just
wrong.
That's wrong, but I'm glad that this 12-year-old girl had the sense to report this. This was a great job on her part, and also obviously not getting into that van.
Yeah, definitely.
So this happened 90 miles away from where Cherrie had been abducted. Potentially, we even have a map. Yeah, the van had a different type of a mural, and it happened still in Pennsylvania, but at the almost at state lines actually. So, do you think there's a potential that this? What are your thoughts? Do you think that there could be a connection? A month later, 90 miles away, similar kind of van, but a different mural.
It's actually really hard to say because murals are not easy to take off and put back on.
You have to, I think, paint over them, like repaint, like put a fresh. Probably have to put a fresh new paint and then paint the mural on it again.
That's true, and if an abductor was doing that, that abductor was sure is putting a lot of investment in it.
Yeah. So what do you think? Probably not?
Probably not. But at the same time, it's just creepy to think that there could have been multiple abductors within the vicinity.
Yeah, that's definitely strange. So witnesses also reported seeing a matching van, like a description matching the description provided by the kids on the school bus and one of their mothers. in New Kensington, which is 20 miles away from Winfield Township. Now, this van was traveling in the direction of another town called Mount Pleasant. I tried to find more information on this tip and I couldn't do it. Maybe it was on a news article or something like that, or a newspaper from back in the day. I found this information on Wikipedia, but I couldn't really find anything else. So that's all we can say. And I feel like there was so many reports of this van that we shouldn't necessarily focus on this one in particular. Other witnesses stated that they saw a blue car following this van. So let's remember that there was a blue car that was also like strange and unaccounted for.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, so there was but then how convenient is this report, that they see the same van and then a blue car behind it, and that the van was repainted black or black 1 or 2 weeks after Mahan's disappearance. So I feel like this particular tip that the van was repainted was probably from someone who thinks they know who did it, thinks of someone who had a similar van that was repainted, and then they reported it to law enforcement later on. As I've said, law enforcement looked into so many different vans that I don't think we should be following on one particular tip. And even in 2024, I don't think that the van will kind of hold the answer to this case anymore, because the van most likely was either destroyed or like is in a junkyard at this point, probably not really being driven around. Like that's just I think the likely outcome of the van.
Yeah.
Now, in 2011, there was a kind of a big commotion in this case. So 13 years ago, when someone, I think, went to the law enforcement station and they provided a tip that law enforcement then later told the media that this particular tip would be potentially crucial in the future, and that they are highly optimistic that this lead could bring closure to Cherrie's family. Law enforcement said that this information was more specific than anything reported in the past. However, this information would most likely mean that Cherrie is no longer alive. I tried to dig into this 2011 tip. The only thing I found was a news article from CNN back in the day, and I think the idea was that this person who provided the tip, it was a very specific tip. The tip would entail that Cherrie is no longer alive, and I think the tipster focused on a specific person. And later on that same year, I believe in 2011, the then investigative trooper who was also providing feedback to the media said that he believes that whoever abducted Cherrie was someone that Cherrie knew, or he knew Cherrie. So a tip came in 2011 which was very specific, and this tip focused on a specific individual, and then later on law enforcement commented that they believed that Cherrie was abducted by someone that knew her. So I feel like, to me, it seems like back in 2011 they had a specific person that they were looking into, but maybe, as the time passed, they didn't have enough information, or enough what is this word I'm looking for? Not information, proof, evidence to convict this particular person. But it seems to me that in 2011 they were kind of looking heavy into someone or something. They had a lead. Maybe that's still the main line of thinking there, because this case is not cold. They keep saying that it's an active case, and this case is one of those cases that is still receiving tips on a regular basis, so they're still investigating it, and maybe they're still focusing on that same tip from 2011.
But at the same time, you mentioned earlier that Cherrie was very trusting. If you know her name, she would assume we're friends. You're friends.
According to her mother.
Yeah. So could it be just a random stranger who knew her name or was particularly friendly to her and she immediately trusted that person?
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case?
Possibly, yeah. Because if she was stalked then by someone, she didn't know that person. If she knew that person, she would have told her mom, like, oh, uncle this, oh, your friend from somewhere. I saw that friend from somewhere over the window. They were looking at us. That friend was looking at us. But she just said that there's someone outside looking in. Stranger.
That's fair. That's fair enough, the point that you've made. There were a few other kind of clues here that I had picked out to talk about because these seemed interesting to me. In 2018, Leroy McKinney, the stepfather, had received an anonymous handwritten letter describing in detail who had murdered his stepdaughter, why they had done so, and where her remains are buried. This letter was sent by an unknown individual who went on by Pastor Justice. Allegedly, police excavated several places in hopes of finding Cherrie's remains, but nothing turned up. So I think the consensus is that this 2018 letter is nonsense. That's the idea that I got from my research. But it's a terrible person who sent that letter. If it's a prank letter, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so cruel.
Janice McKinney stated that she still believes her daughter's disappearance can be solved. Janice revealed that she does not believe that Cherrie's biological father was involved in her abduction, but she believed that individuals known to him were. Janice McKinney said that Cherrie's father still lives in Butler County and was local to where she grew up in Winfield Township. This was according to 2022 information. She said that the father knew a biker gang. She felt that these bikers were dangerous, but she doesn't know if they were violent or not. And she thinks that a pedophile is still a possibility, in her opinion. But so in 2022, Janice McKinney stated that she thinks that maybe someone connected to the biological father would be involved in the case. And I guess the reasoning for this would be that I've listened to a podcast about Cherrie's case, and there was a thought provided that was kind of interesting. It was that potentially, since Janice was allegedly raped when Cherrie was born, that the biological father would be afraid that this information ever came public. And they would be accused of rape, and they didn't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
So that's why they would have the motivation to abduct Cherrie. Some other kind of potential motivation would be to avoid paying child support. But at this point, it was already 8 years into Cherrie's life, and
Yeah, but why wait?
yeah, and Janice never really pursued any legal, as far as I'm aware, any legal actions against the biological father. So maybe it would be a little strange to assume that now after 8 years she would all of a sudden start doing that.
Yeah.
And then Janice mentions a biker gang that I don't have any more information on, which is also something interesting to focus on. That the biker gang would have potentially done this. So just some thoughts here. The last clue that I found interesting, and I've seen this in a couple of places, so I wanted to kind of put it out there. It's highly speculative, but still, I'm going to talk about it. So a woman has been posting on Reddit and has been posting on some other kind of crime blogs for years now. And she claims that she knows the perpetrators as two brothers who lived across the street from Cherrie's grandmother, the same house where Janice and Cherrie had grown up together. Cherrie went to school with this family, or Janice went to school with this family, because Janice was still 16. I'm not sure exactly who went to school with whom. And apparently the tipster who provided this tip claims that she used to babysit Cherrie. And the tipster has been posting on these blogs for years, and She says that two of these brothers did it, and apparently some other people started looking into her claims, some other like web sleuth, and they were able to find out that one of those brothers is a registered sex offender.
Okay, this is bad.
Yeah, so there's apparently two brothers who lived across from Cherrie's grandmother's house, and one of them is now a sex offender. And there's something going on about that one of them was like into making murals. Yeah, but this is, just could be completely false information. Just want to completely raise your attention that this is completely, speculations. This tip is not on Wikipedia, it's not on any news sources. So maybe it's kind of,
But maybe the police already knows about this.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they know about it. They have so many reports. They probably know about all of these leads that we talked about for sure. So yeah, that kind of concludes the information that I have. What is your thinking right now? Do you have like anything that you want to anything that jumps out to you?
Honestly, I feel like we already talked about it, but I have a strange feeling that it's definitely abduction, not anything else, because there could be, no one knows for sure, she could have maybe accidentally fell somewhere or walked on her own, but I don't know, it screams abduction. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's abduction. And another detail that I kind of left out was that apparently there was tire marks kind of close to the driveway.
You forgot about that?
Yeah, it was a detail. It was time. I don't think it was ever brought up as a very important detail during the research.
Okay.
But it kind of was one of the reasons why they think it was an abduction.
Yeah.
The van and then the tire marks next to the driveway. I mean, the driveway is literally adjacent to the road, so there would be tire marks there regardless. But I don't know what they meant by tire marks. Was the tire marks a little bit on the driveway?
Curved?
Yes.
Yeah.
Something. Maybe the person who potentially abducted Cherrie made like a U-turn and kind of, had to go a little bit on the driveway. So maybe that's what it entails. But to me personally, if I would just say my thoughts, because I spent a little bit of time trying to think about this case, and the important clues, in my opinion, were these, that I found it very interesting, the information that came out just a month ago, that someone was looking at Cherrie through the window.
Yeah, that one's just creepy.
That's something that kind of paints it kind of moves my line of thinking into a more targeted scenario. Another thing that I found interesting was the 2011 specific tip leading to someone who knew Cherrie, according to law enforcement. It just kind of paints us, a picture that law enforcement is looking at someone specific, or at least back 10 years ago they were looking at someone specific, and they were very positive about that this could be something very positive in the future, whatever that would mean. I also think it's important what Janice told the media, because she was the closest person to Cherrie, and she told the media that the biological dad knew some biker gang people and they might be involved. So I think that's something to focus on, right? And then I think the general things, like the things like that this abduction happened just a month after they moved into this place. The fact that Janice had a day off. Janice didn't go pick up Cherrie only that one day.
But that's random though. That's
not
a routine.
Random, but that's not the regular pattern. All I'm saying is that maybe somehow, some way, the irregularity of the pattern somehow made sense. Like somehow maybe this person, whoever was in the van, if the van was involved, they knew that this was somehow irregular pattern. Maybe they knew it was a day off for Janice.
And do you think it could be someone from Janice's work?
I have no idea what she was even working, so I can't really
Yeah.
talk about that. But just the irregularity of the whole day, the fact that the irregular kind of line of things that happen, maybe that's somehow connected. I don't know, especially since we have these allegations of a biker gang and you know, just something to think about, I guess.
Definitely.
And I think the fact that law enforcement believed at that point that it was someone who knew Cherrie, it kind of made sense to me, because the odds of a complete stranger abducting Cherrie in a very distinct van in the middle of a random rural road would be very bizarre, because it's a very distinct van. You know, you're gonna be, you know, I mean, either the person who abducted Cherrie, and if they abducted in the van, maybe they didn't think anyone would see them. Otherwise, why would you use this van?
No, but why park somewhere where it's so easy to see a spot?
Exactly, so easy to see.
In a freaking bus stop.
In the bus stop, yeah. And if you're gonna be planning on abducting Cherrie, you know that the bus stop is 100 yards away from the house. So maybe this is not the best place to target Cherrie, because if you're gonna target specifically Cherrie, you know that she literally lives almost adjacent to the bus stop. Unless you thought maybe I could potentially abduct Cherrie as she's making that walk up the driveway.
No, I do think this is that was the perfect time, because where else?
Yeah,
Cherrie was always at home, always with the mom, Janice,
or at school.
or at school.
Yeah.
That's probably the only very short period of time she's alone, and it's not happening every day.
That's a good point. That's actually a good point. I was thinking maybe somewhere on the walk from the school to the bus stop.
Oh yeah, that's
But then
true.
again, you're walking with other kids, and there's a lot more in that area where her school is. I was able to find it. It's a more of a active road. It's less rural. There's more cars driving by, so I would say that your line of thinking is correct here, that maybe it actually, when you think about it, at least for me, it does seem that maybe where Cherrie got abducted is probably the best place to abduct Cherrie if you're targeting that, you know? I mean, as a potential culprit.
But at the same time, that culprit knew that at that particular day, she would be walking alone.
Yeah. Or didn't know. Or didn't even know anything about the pattern. Just knew that she lived close by. Didn't even know that Janice would usually go pick her up. And it was just
Coincidence?
just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But then, if the van is not involved, why was the van there? Why is a van in the middle of that road? Why is it there? And on top of that, if it's not involved, why didn't the driver turn himself in? No Google Maps. So, what are the chances of that van without any Google Maps, with the possibility of getting lost easily in those Pennsylvania rural roads? Why would you be there in 85?
Question: is there like a hiking trail nearby, or something worth seeing?
I don't necessarily know. I didn't look into it. Just to me, as I was looking at the map, it didn't seem like it was leading to anywhere, that road. It was just a road,
Forest road.
forest road that has a bunch of house next to it. And there's nothing really super specific about that road. It's just a road as any other road in the location.
Yeah, that's pretty odd, but at the same time, if cars are not, like, unidentified cars are not always there, then why did the mother, not Cherrie's mother, the other mother who picked up other kids, she would have noticed, like, oh, there's a weird car in here that's not always here.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think that's actually what happened. They did notice it.
Oh, they noticed it, but
Well,
not enough to, like, Tell everybody and tell the
Are you talking about the blue car?
the blue car.
The blue car? Oh, yeah, the blue car is a complete mystery to me because I didn't even understand what it meant that it was strange. Like, how it is strange. It was just on the road, kind of parked there. I would assume it was just parked somewhere close. And usually, even if that's already strange, that maybe like cars don't usually park there, or not a lot of cars park there. It's, there weren't a lot of cars there. Maybe that's the case.
I didn't even see a sidewalk over there.
Yeah,
in
but then
the
you think about
screenshot.
it, is there any chance that this car, the blue car and the van, were working together?
I have no idea. What do you think?
I also have no idea, but it's worth thinking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe they were working together at this point. But yeah, so the things I would focus in on is the fact that Cherrie reported someone looking at her through the window. I would focus on, the tip from law enforcement. It could be a specific person. The biker gang, I have no idea who these people are.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, that's it. That's all I had to say.
Could it potentially be a neighbor?
Yeah, why not? Why couldn't it be a neighbor? I don't know who was in the neighborhood. I know that like a classmate was living in the driveway next to them, and it's kind of hard to tell how many people lived here. Even in the latest Google Maps from like this year, you could see that there's not a lot of homes there. So back in '85, there's probably even less homes. So I'm not sure. It's such a rural thing. But yeah, maybe a neighbor or just maybe a member of the community. Maybe let's put it that way.
There's a lot of possibilities here.
Because there really aren't any neighbors, to like in a stereotypical sense of a neighbor.
Yeah.
There's no fence separating your house and someone else's house because they lived on a steep incline driveway, and when you get there, there's their house and it's just surrounded by woods in all directions, and there's not a single house anywhere. So it's very strange.
Really strange.
A very strange case. I think we can wrap up this case. I don't have anything else that I would like to share about this case that kind of jumped to my attention. So please, if anyone has any thoughts, please leave them in the comments, either on the YouTube channel or message us on our Gmail account. You could find us on our social media. So
or Facebook.
Facebook. We have a TikTok account. We have an Instagram account, so you could message us there. And anything you would like to add before we kind of sign out?
Nothing at this point.
Yeah, me too. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.
See you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.